Right now, I live in New Jersey. I don't know if you got anybody's from New Jersey, but I live in Orange, New Jersey, which is a little due west of Newark and about 11 miles west of Manhattan, which is one of the reasons why we picked the house. It was big and nice and close to Manhattan for commutation purposes. And I went to Oneonta a long, long time ago on a planet far, far away. And from the pictures that I see, Oneonta is really like taking strides to improve the campus. It looks like a really nice university, and of course it was nice then. But I went to school from 19. I hate to say it, but 1980 to 1984. Was anybody born at that time, or there you go. All right, but but yeah. So uh, I went to Oneonta because of the history and English programs that they had. And actually, I was looking to plan, I was thinking about going to law school. And I ended up majoring in European history with a minor in business economics. And uh, I lived 1 year on campus and then moved off campus. I think I lived, um, my off campus place was down on West Street. Is West Street still there? Like that, yep. So I remember our house. It was I played lacrosse and there, and half the guys, half the guys that were in the house were on the lacrosse team, and uh, we kind of stumbled upon the house because there was a used bookstore down. Is that still there? There was a store on the corner of Walnut, I think, in West Street. Do I have it right?
So the Damascene bookstore, which was in the bookseller there,
Yes.
has now moved onto campus and does the
Ah,
bookstore for us.
So, so we were going there for books, and we saw a for rent sign, and that's how we found our off-campus housing. But yeah, so I liked Oneonta because where the location. I like being away from I grew up in New York City. I grew up in the Bronx and lived in Long Island, and I like the being upstairs up in the rural setting. It was kind of rural, but also it was a nice little town. I just liked it for when I got there for a variety of reasons, uh, and just loved the experience. Had great teachers. Um, I remember there was a psychology teacher there that we got along with, and he Dr. Boggs. I don't know if that name rings a bell to you, but yeah, so just had great. The classes were never too big. Everyone knew each other. I really liked that kind of like family campus atmosphere. Um, was it was it McDuff? I think I lived in McDuff or four. I think I lived in McDuff. That was the dorm that I lived in. And the guys that I was we were in a suite on the first floor, and the guys that I was rooming with, they stayed on campus. They stayed for a second year. I moved off campus with a friend of mine, and we found a place down. I can't remember the street, but I was just with him for a semester, and then when the other guys decided to move down, that's when we found the big house right by the bookstore. So, does anybody have any questions about like campus life? Um, I'd be curious to hear what it's like now, because I mean, the pictures that I have, ironically, a lot of my friends with kids, a lot of them ended up going to Oneonta too. So it becomes like almost like a family tradition. And my sister, my younger sister went to Oneonta. She used to come up and visit me with her friends, and she liked it so much she ended up going to school there. So um, there is that attraction. And from what I see and some of the research I've done, Oneonta seems to be a pretty nice destination in terms of they have this ranking where it's in terms of cost effectiveness, graduation rates, and the type of jobs that graduates get. It's like in the top 25% percentile in terms of most effective, well-rounded schools. They got it sounds like they improved their sports program. I see the campus on some of the pictures, and online, and some of the mailings that I got, they've really done a nice job of improving, the infrastructure of the school. So that's great news, and and so then after I graduated, does anybody have any questions about like camp? I
Can we
don't.
have a show of hands for any people whose parents are alumni, either physical hands or virtual hands? Stephanie.
So like I'd be curious to hear, one or two people, like how did you find out? How did you pick Oni? How did you find Oneonta? Right? I mean, as soon as there's so many choices now. It's especially with social media and the internet. There's so much choice now, and availability. How did you find it, and how did you decide? And is it like when I went to school there, it was predominantly people from Long Island, New York, Poughkeepsie, and there was a couple of folks around from Albany and Syracuse, especially some of the guys I played lacrosse with. So is that still kind of like the where people come from to go to the school?
We can always let Karen Brown answer that if she wants to unmute, or anyone else. Stephanie, you're Karen?
Yeah, my mom actually graduated in '85, so not too far off from you.
Okay.
Awesome. Obviously, I heard about it from her, and my older sister went to Oneonta as well. So.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't want to leave. I actually I stayed for my girlfriend at the time. Still she had an extra semester there, and I ended up staying there with her. Because I just we didn't want to leave. It was much cheaper back then to survive. As a student. Nowadays, cost of living is crazy right now, because some of my nephews, my wife and I, we don't have any kids, but we live vicariously through our brothers and sisters' kids. So we're the fun uncles and aunts. But like, I know the cost of living at schools are just through the roof. It's just pretty. That's like a huge decision point, and that's actually a benefit, because upstate New York, cost of living very different than, let's say, New York, the New York metropolitan area, or Albany. It's much different. Like, I was always telling my nephews, don't go to a school in a major city, because you won't be able to do anything, because it's going to be too expensive, and it just you want to kind of be able to go to a place where the cost of living is a little bit more affordable, and you can enjoy yourself a little bit. Oh, so Tim Boggs, okay. So he left the college in the late '80s and became a physician in Texas. Okay. He was a super nice guy, great teacher. I loved his classes. Great guy. So after we finally left, I immediately started looking for work, and my focus was law firms, and I was looking to get to become a paralegal. Like, usually, and I think the best thing to learn is to don't overanalyze, what you look for, and always remember that your first job is not going to be your last job. And I think it's as long as you get a foot in the door in something that's as close or as nearly close to what you want to do, you'll learn how to either get to where you want to be, or you might learn that there are other things that you like, more than what you had originally intended to do in terms of a career. Because when I started working as a paralegal, worked at a patent and trademark law firm in New York, and I was the only non-Ivy League person that worked there. So, but I didn't really like it that much. It wasn't it didn't really jive with me in terms of the culture and the type of work that they did. And I ended up looking for work, and I found a job posting for the New York Cotton Exchange as a compliance officer, because it tied back to what I was doing as a paralegal at this firm, patent and trademarks infringements, and that was my first foray into Wall Street, into the financial services industry. Had no intention of going going into financial services, but that's how it led me to there. When I got there, it was like it clicked, like everything. I liked the people, the energy level, and I figured out that being in an office isolated, I'm I think a bit of an extrovert and social, more social, and so in financial services there's more interaction with people, and that was one of the things that really turned me on to it. And it was hard, it was demanding, and very competitive, and those are the things that really that attracted to me, and that's how I first found my career path. And worked at New York Cotton Exchange, and then found a job at this company called Clayton Brown and Associates on a fixed income sales desk. And I walked in for the interview, and it turns out there was someone working there that I went to high school with. So that was interesting, and really liked it there. And then the markets turned down in the late '80s, and we got laid off. Firms had to what they call RIFs, reduction in force. So in order to meet their expense line, they had to let people go, and I was let go. And so through looking for work, one of my roommates from college, he was working at Dean Witter, and I met. We used to meet at night after work, and I met a lot of his friends that worked at Dean Witter, and one of his friends was this woman, Kathy Colleton, and her and a group of people from Dean Witter went over to a British news service, financial news service called Reuters. I don't know if you've heard of Reuters, the financial news service, but it's like equivalent to like a Wall Street Journal or New York Times, but it's based in the UK. It's a British-based firm, and she she ended up going there with a whole bunch of individuals that I knew through my roommate, and I applied for a job there, and one of the people that were interviewing me was her. So as soon as I met her, we spoke for like 3 minutes, and I pretty much had the job. And so another learning lesson, it's not just what you know, it's who you know. So always, I think subject matter expertise is very, very important, but being able to articulate it, keeping things simple, like being able to, understand and explain complex situations and simplify them and in a very succinct way. I think people want that. And I think, you'll learn that once you get out of the academic world and apply what you learned in the academic world in the real world of applying, in certain industries. And so I always tell my friends, that was my first foray in the what they call market data services. So a lot of firms like like Citibank, J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, these firms need information to make investment decisions and trading decisions. And so that first job at Reuters, I was hired as a fixed income specialist because I understood the bond markets, not equities, but more so the bond markets. And that was my first foray into data. And that's how I became kind of like an accidental data manager. It wasn't by choice. Like I didn't sit in school and say, oh boy, I can't, I really want to manage market data for a bank. You never know what path you'll take and where it will take you, who you meet, and a lot of times you end up, I think school may not just only teach you, certain subjects, but I think it also teaches you how to understand things, read, how to concentrate, how to absorb, how to interpret. One of the things, that I became very good at is understanding a problem and putting together a solution, because half my day is spent in meetings, and the other half is spent preparing for those meetings. And the preparation includes, I almost call it like sitting in your office doing homework, like you're preparing for a test, which is the meeting. And so you're able to put together, like I live in Microsoft Office, like PowerPoints, Excel, Word. And so I think it's, I think, one of the things I always tell, my nieces, nephews, friends, kids, and people like yourselves is never, always keep an open mind. And you never know where, your job search, you might think that you really, maybe you do have a specific passion of what you want to do today and you want to stick to it, and that's great. But you never know what might happen in terms of going to a firm and getting hired, or applying for a job, interviewing for a job, what that might end up leading you to. It could be a completely different career path that you never thought of. And you're like, wow, this is great. And that's where it led me. Now for the last, 25 plus years, I've been managing information, the market data and information services for and consulting for banks and investment advisors. Like, I'm sure you heard of Vanguard. Vanguard is a company that I help out with. There's trying to think of other examples you might know. Raymond James. Like there's a lot of firms now on the investment management side versus banks are now kind of like the big participants that require a lot of information. And now with social media and technology, people are able to ingest, with some of the technology they use, large amounts of data to analyze and understand what opportunities there are to buy and sell stocks, bonds, make investments on behalf of themselves and on behalf of their clients. And so all that information they need and want is something that I manage, and it's very important to them, and you don't really ever hear about it. Usually in a firm's expense line, they're next to compensation, information is probably the biggest expense. Like at Citigroup, it was about a 450. I managed it with a team, and it was about a $400 million portfolio of services that bank. They had people sitting in New York, London, Hong Kong, Singapore, and that's another thing. If you like to travel and see things, think about what firms can give you an opportunity to travel. Not just be here in the Northeast, but I've been all over the world because of my job. I've been I've been in London, Scotland, Europe, Paris, Frankfurt, Brussels, Hong Kong, Singapore, San Francisco, Dallas, Miami, Tokyo. So it really it was a great life. It still is a great life experience. But I mean, it's just you think about all those things. To me, it just really makes life much more interesting, much more challenging, and much more rewarding.
Now, Tom, was that something that you did in college or considered in college? Was study abroad or did any kind of trips like that? Even a spring break run down to Florida?
Well, that, but, I had zero money. I couldn't afford anything. So I didn't really, I thought about it, but never did it. But I had some friends that went over to Ireland, but I think traveling abroad for school, I think that would be, I wish I did, but at least I got a chance to do it in my work career, so, and so I think if you could do, what do they call student transfer? What do they call them again?
Study abroad.
Exchange programs.
Yeah.
So, when I was going to school, I remember, Ireland was a big destination, and they had a lot of partnerships there with schools in Ireland, the UK, England, and English-speaking countries. I mean, if you have the ability to speak a foreign language, I know there's a lot of relationships in France. I guess the Holland is. I've been to Amsterdam. Actually, I went there for my honeymoon, and Amsterdam's a beautiful town. It's all canals. It's an amazing place. Yeah, so if you can get a chance to go abroad and to get a different life perspective, even it's a different educational perspective. My wife's from Jamaica, and the way her standardized testing in the Commonwealth is completely different than how the U.S. is today. Here in the U.S., it's more, it's divert multiple choice, matching, written. Whereas, some countries it's more written. There's a lot of writing involved, and so you're required to tell more of a story in terms of providing an answer. So there's a lot of new experiences you could have. So I think going to school abroad, that would be, if you can do it, I think it would be a chance of a lifetime for you, because you could end up meeting people there. You might want to stay, and you might want to live there, and you might want to find work there. So.
Tom, we have a hand up from the audience, and
Sure.
Katanya.
Hi, my mom's from Jamaica, so like the whole thing with the education, it's very different down there from like how I do my work and how she does it. It's like when I used to ask her for help with my homework, she does it one way, and I'm like, wait, I don't understand that. Go back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, my wife is from Montego Bay, and
my mom's from Kingston.
Yep, and I remember she's an attorney, and I remember when she came up to take the bar, it was a complete culture shock in terms of how to take the exam. Like she had to prepare so differently, because it was just completely new and different for her, because of just the standardized testing process there is completely different. It's pretty much within the Commonwealth, right? I think it's very similar. Like she's barred in Canada too, so. But it was a lot easier for her to get barred because the standard testing standards were the same. So yeah. So been to Canada for work. I forgot about that. Toronto.
On a day-to-day basis, you said you deal a lot with meetings and preparing for meetings. Yeah. What are the types of things that people are requesting of you in terms of data sets or your interpretation, or they already know what they need and they just want you to kind of package it together?
Well, they like, for instance, I'll give you an example. I think you kind of framed it well there. It's let's say there's a problem around reporting the cost of using the information to make investment decisions. They really can't get their hands on like what exactly is the actual versus estimate, right? And so what I would do is frame out the problem, meet with some of the business units with my team, find out what's the problem, what's working and what's not, and then focus on what's not working, define it. So frame it out in the presentation or talking points, and identify options. I would present options for them to choose, like what type of solution they want to present, and do they want to, how much are they willing to spend to do it, right? Because like like for instance, when I was at Jeffries, when I walked in, what they call their inventory system, which is their, in a financial terminology, it's a subledger, right? And it's used to reconcile to each of the business expense lines. They have what they call a P&L, a profit and loss statement. So they want to be able to, the business reconciles their P&L, and then they want to see what their expenses are, and that shows how, A, if they're profitable, and B, if they're profitable, how much. So it's very important to have a line aside to what their expenses are. And outside of compensation, usually market data is probably is typically the biggest one. So what I had to do was recompile, or present to them an option of how to recompile the inventory system so it can accurately reflect what they were paying for in terms of their desktop, what we call desktop services. And you heard of Bloomberg, right?
Right, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, Dr. McAvoy is on, and I think we still have Bloomberg terminals and an access to the subscription. Is that correct?
Yep, I'm sure you do. He's what's the term I'm looking for? He's a pretty active philanthropist. He's big at providing his services, and he's been Bloomberg's. I mean, how many people have their family name as now a term in the dictionary? It's a verb and a noun. So Bloomberg is probably the most important and biggest data provider in my industry. Every firm you go to, it's the number one spend. It's the biggest spend. It's a good product, and
can we have a show?
Whatever you can find, whatever question you have or whatever you're looking for, you can find it on the terminal, and it's very intuitive. Like when they built it to be as intuitive as you possibly can and user friendly in terms of what kind of questions or queries you're going to make.
Can we have a show of hands, either in person or virtual hands, as how many people have looked into those Bloomberg terminals on our campus? I know that it's a little rough this year, but
yeah,
good. So you're getting some experience. And
there's also other services. I mean, nothing's perfect, right? So Bloomberg isn't perfect. It's a little bit of an antiquated system to a certain extent, but there's other products that are quite good too. There's a company called Money.net, actually a former Bloomberg employee, and he used to trade what they call commodities. And that's like energy, oil. They trade oil, and it's typically what they call futures market. Like, so you're trying to buy and sell what the future value of a barrel of oil or a bushel of wheat or cotton or sugar, cattle, natural gas, liquid natural gas. But there's a company called Money.net, which is a pretty easy tool to use, and they take advantage of machine learning and some robotic processing. So it's really pretty intuitive. That's the only thing that really Bloomberg is like they're trying to play catch up with some of the newer technologies. But yeah, so how I present, is define the problem in terms of what the business perceives it to be. Make corrections in terms of their perceptions if they're missing the point, and present options, the choices, solutions, alternatives. Here's the top 3 things that we can do. It's going to take X number of days, weeks, or months, or maybe 2 years, because obviously you have other things to do. The term we use is run the bank, day-to-day stuff. Like let's say you're doing your homework today for one class, but you got to study for an exam that's coming up in a month or two. It's almost similar to that. Like, you have stuff that you got to do today, but you got a big presentation to senior management next week that you have to prepare for. So, it's similar, very similar in terms of, how do you budget your time? How do you manage your time? Being able to multitask, being able to jump in and jump out of situations to better understand. Like, I might have 3 consecutive meetings that have 3 different topics, and you really have to be able to, turn, really kind of change, pivot in terms of what you're thinking about. And let's say if you're talking to traders, which are much more energetic and need immediate answers, and there might be a specific different topic, or then you talk to finance and it's much more about numbers, and then you might be talking to somebody who's what we call back office. That's what they call operations, where they reconcile and match trades, counterparty information, like counterparty being the other side. Let's say Wells Fargo bought something from Bank of America. Bank of America is considered a counterparty, so there's a lot of reconciliations, but there's not just one, there's hundreds of thousands of transactions potentially, because especially with the technology you have today, you can do more in less time. So that's why, I don't know if you ever noticed that markets seem to be, if you watch TV, in financial news services, news channels like CNBC, or it seems the market is very volatile, right? And it's less about, I think what some of the networks need to probably emphasize is a lot of these things are being driven by algorithms with machine programs. They're not human trade. So maybe 10, 15 years ago, a lot of transactions were being done by individuals. So it's less volume, less volatile. Whereas today, a lot of these firms have machines that are making trades, and they're trading against, they're buying and selling in the U.S. They're at the same time they're executing orders in London, in the UK, Asia. What they call macro strategies, which is kind of a high level view of what you think the world is going to, do financially, or how they're going to do financially, how the U.S. is going to do versus Japan, versus the United Kingdom, versus the European Union. What they call emerging markets. They look at basket of emerging markets like Latin America. They see that as a basket of emerging markets, and they trade it very differently than the U.S. So they're always looking at different strategies in terms of what to do in the U.S. versus Latin America, or Africa is considered an emerging market. So there's investment strategies in Africa or Southeast Asia. So New Zealand, Malaysia. So it really it's pretty interesting, and it's there's not enough hours in the day sometimes.
That's great, and I'm sure our students are used to going from one topic to the other, preparing for their quiz with Charlene and their lecture with Dr. McAvoy.
Yeah, it's the same. You have a lineup of classes that start at 8:30, and you might be running till 12:30 or 1 o'clock, and you have to prepare for that, and you take a quick breather and have a bite to eat, and you're back at it. Either you have homework to do. Do you guys still have like classes at night, like late afternoon or early evening classes? Because I remember we used to have that too.
Yeah, and let me jump in, and I just want to thank Stephanie for being the head liaison here for this meeting. If there's anything that Stephanie would like to chime in and add, or even ask, feel free to do that. And I know that we have in the chat, there's a question from Dr. McAvoy wondering about the thoughts about future careers, what they will look like in corporate offices, sales functions, or the financial services industry in general.
Yeah.
If the students are interested in careers which focus on data management, how important is that knowledge for students looking for internships or graduates seeking their first jobs? Mm-hmm. And for corporate managers outside of data management functions over the next decade, how important or how much data management background will be necessary to do their jobs? So
yeah, those are great. It's you just encapsulate like what the future. All industries are now more dependent on data than ever before. Everything's driven off. All their business decisions are driven off data, and I think the future will look like. I think 1,000 years from now, they're gonna, when Manhattan becomes like the pyramids, and we're under like tons of sand, they're gonna be wondering. Everyone got on trains and got in their cars and all raced to get to the office to do something that they could do at home very easily. Why would they do that? I think what's happening now, I think technology, that the big data technology, cloud-based technology, things that can be processed quicker. You really don't need to be at an office to do this. Look what we're doing right now. We don't need to be in the same room together to do this. So I think sometimes things happen, whether they're good or bad, where it says obviously the pandemic's very bad, but I think it clawed forward our use of technology to get work done. And I think a lot, especially in our banking industry, there's it's got a very hierarchical view of employment, and people that work for the firm, it's kind of militaristic, where everyone's got to be there at a certain time, and everyone's got to work together. But they finally are accepting, begrudgingly, I think, that you can still be together like this and still be productive. And I think, like the CEO, Rich Gorman of Morgan Stanley said, back when things really hit the fan in March of 2020, he said, if you told me that everyone would be working from home and there'd be huge volatility and huge trade volumes, that we'd be able to do all this remotely, working from home, I would have told you you're crazy. But they had some of the biggest volume days in the history of the stock market in March and April, and everything was executed flawlessly. So I think the future careers will be almost like I think humans are social beings, right? So I think you still need man can just live on Zoom alone just for so long. So I think you can still be productive, but you still that human connection. It's just you need it. So I think there's going to be a rotation. I think what I'm hearing from friends, like we haven't been down in our office since I haven't been in the office since February, and I haven't gotten a haircut since March. So I kind of like the fact that I don't have to get a haircut for a whole year, and no one's going to complain about it. But I just think there's going to be things are going to be done more virtually. I think there won't be a stigma. Sometimes when you say you're working from home, people don't believe it. You're not working from home. You're just at home, right? So I think it's proof positive that you can be even more effective. Like I've saved myself 3 hours of commute time a day. So quality of life helps. I don't have to get up at 4:30 in the morning anymore. I can get up at 6:30. So that 2 hours in the morning of sleep, as you know, an extra hour or two is like it's like gold. And then data management. I think understanding what data management means, what data, like the industries that you're looking at, what do they use to make decisions in that industry. And I wish, one of the things I always kid around with my coworkers is, boy, I wish I had Google when I was going to school. I'd have a 5.0, not a 4.0. But I think Google is such a great resource to not just to know what to do, but why and how. And I tell that to people that work for me, that got me, I think that I was able to be successful and get to where I am is not just understanding what to do, but why. What's the purpose of what you're trying to do, and what's the bigger purpose, the greater purpose around the company or the industry that you want to look at, but also what's the purpose, like what's in front of you and what's underneath. So to me, I think what's interesting, I became an accidental market data management person, but now data is like probably the most important asset. It's like the new gold or the new oil for the world. I think without information is king. Without it, any industry or any firm is not going to be successful. So I think understanding data management tools, sorry, I just got distracted by an email, but I think
that kind of brings it in. It's to drink from the fire hose is what I hear all the time. There's so much data that's out there.
Yeah, and being able to normalize it and rationalize it. Like I'll give you an example. This one investment bank, this French investment bank, they asked us, what we did. They asked us to build a data model. So in other words, they have, they want access to, what their goal was. They have 10,000 clients, but they wanted to access the entire universe of publicly traded firms globally, and all private companies, what they call private equity, PE. That's about 15 million companies. And then you have data points around the fundamentals, data points around their legal entity hierarchies. Like I'll give you an example, like SoftBank. I don't know if you ever heard, it's a Japanese conglomerate that's a big private investor in a lot of different companies. They funded WeWorks. You guys heard of, I'm sure you heard of WeWorks, the remote, no? Yeah, anybody?
Shared office space.
Shared office space, Blackstone. So, but SoftBank owned, like, the amount of companies that are under the umbrella of SoftBank, dozens, maybe over 100. So getting an understand, so 15 million times 100, they need, they suddenly need a data management tool to be able to give any of their bankers the ability to log on and say, I want to see internet technology companies, I want to see a list of all the international internet technology companies in Malaysia or Eastern Europe. And I want to see ones that are clients of ours and ones that aren't. Being able to slice and dice and look at information, like having a portal for your homework. Like, no matter where you are, you have a database of information that you can that will help with history, with math, English, whatever your courses are, sciences, that's data. And how do you manage that? And I'm sure SUNY Oneonta has relationships with AWS or Microsoft Azure, where you have everything now virtually in the cloud. I remember the old days of having files, paper files in a drawer or in your closet. Now, I don't have to worry about having something stored on my desktop or my laptop. I have Microsoft OneDrive. So it doesn't matter if I'm my laptop or my PC, I have access to that's data management. So, a lot of our clients are, what they call trying to digitize themselves, where wherever they are in the world, they want to have access to the information they need and want at a moment's notice. So wherever they are in the world, they can do it. Like what, my wife and I were talking, eventually we're going to move back to Jamaica. I basically could work from home in Jamaica. How good would that be? Sitting, in shorts and flip-flops on the porch with my laptop, and no one else knows except me. So I think, having data, having the availability of large data sets anywhere you are, anytime, anywhere, I think that's going to be the future. So you're not going to have to be somewhere to do something. So
that's
I
great.
think hopefully I answered that question, because that was a good segue.
Sure. Anyone else? I know, Stephanie, I gave you enough lead time that if you have any questions, or Carmel's always good for a good question or two, and definitely open it up to anyone else, because we have about 10 minutes left.
I guess I'd like to ask if you have any advice for recent graduates now entering into the working world, especially in business.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, in terms of what type, do you have a list of, like, companies or industries that you want to participate in? I think organize yourself that way. I would look at certain ways to format your resume or CV, and start with being clear in terms of what your goals are. Like an executive summary in terms of who you are, what you want to be, what you want to aspire to be. And I think, and explaining, your ability to, be flexible and, do whatever it takes. At an entry level, sometimes you have to do some of the menial tasks to kind of, earn your way in. So I remember I used to kid around, like, take out the garbage, or, get the boss coffee. Just kidding. But, little things like just being able to articulate yourself in writing, and being able to take that resume and articulate it, in a conversation. Because, I think a lot of times firms, and put it up on and use LinkedIn. I think a lot of the internet technologies, I think LinkedIn is very important, because a lot of HR, human resources, are, and I'm sure, Oneonta is using this too, like databases. They do their recruiting, and they find people. Like I get called all the time from companies who found me on LinkedIn. So I think getting yourself out there and using the internet, the technology to a virtual resume, not just a hard copy. And understanding, being very adept at using Microsoft Office, because that's like the de facto business tools in any industry you're in. So really having a good understanding of technology, like Excel, being able to really use Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and depending if you're in the sciences or regardless of whether you're in the sciences or if you have an emphasis on math, numeric numbers, or the written word, like history or English, and you want to go to law school, there's always going to be things that you're going to have to run in terms of numbers. So I think it's always very good to have a really good understanding of how to use Excel and some of the Microsoft Office products, and being able to express yourself and build out reports. Because I think a lot of companies will probably ask you to demonstrate, they'll probably give you a scenario, almost like a quiz, right? Like, here's a problem, here's what I want you to build. Can you construct this for me? So those are the kind of things that I can think of that would be very helpful for you. And just stay the course. Sorry, go ahead.
I'll put in a pitch for our investment management class. It's a capstone class where you actually get to take a portion of the college foundation assets and make recommendations, look into what asset classes.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
And we had a great donor who set that up and basically lets the seniors kind of play with the money. And then we invested according to whoever wins. So it's a competitive thing. So if anyone's lining up to do that.
Yeah. I took one of the things when I was like, and also look for companies that support, personal advancement. Like a lot of companies, let's say if you want to get a master's or get an advanced degree, look for firms that will support that. Like Reuters, firms will fund you, like they'll pay for your school, but you have to commit for a couple of years, which to me is a no-brainer. But I remember some of the courses I took at the New York Institute of Finance. The final exam was I was an FX trader, and I had to make $100,000 in an hour. So find other like little coursework, like things, instead of just going for your master's or something like that. There might be some little certifications that might be helpful. Microsoft certifications, or a lot of universities provide certifications in terms of big data management, right? Or so you'll see things that are not really super expensive, or you have to commit for 2 years, but maybe just a couple of certifications, based on what you want to do, and you've identified a skill set that you want to improve or master. Certifications are pretty good too.
We have about time for 2 more questions. Anyone else want to raise their hand and ask Tom what to expect as next steps, even if you're a sophomore, junior, or senior looking to stay one more semester at Oneonta or so? Yeah,
I would say I would just don't put so much pressure on yourself to have to do something right away, right? Smell the roses a little bit too, but stay the course. And, it's, life is like fishing, you're there for a long, long time. You're not going to, but when you catch the fish, it's good. That's good stuff. So I just think, there's going to be a lot of times where you're going to get frustrated. Things aren't going to work out the way you think it's going to work out. But, it's always going to be a learning experience, and you got to figure out a workaround. That's the way I look at it. I mean, things go wrong. Like this year has been a lot of stuff going on. I just try to look at it as just another log on the fire, just another box to check, just another problem to solve. So I think if you just don't take things too personally and too seriously, in terms of negativity, resist, if like you feel frustrated about finding work or what to do or how to start it, just don't be patient and research it and, ask questions.
That's great. Does anyone want to volunteer and to talk about what courses they're taking right now, what they're finding interesting? Not necessarily if you're in Dr. McAvoy's class, but maybe you want to volunteer that. And while you're thinking about that, I'll say that it's a nice baseball analogy, which Dr. McAvoy will appreciate. It's you hit a lot of singles, you hope for the home run, but the most important thing is on-base percentage.
There you go.
Anyone else want to jump in? Share a little bit about what's going on at Oneonta. I'm working from home. You can see in my background, working from home. So I haven't really been on campus too much. And of course, I can't just drop in and observe a class. What's it like these days? They'll make me call on you.
I mean, I've been taking all online classes. I haven't had an in-person class since.
Is everyone at home right now? Is everyone work from home? Yep.
I'm currently home, but I know some people did decide to go back to campus.
Here's a good way to do it. So where is everybody? What is home? Like what part of where are you from? Like where are you from, Stephanie? Where are you?
Orange County?
Oh, okay, in upstate New York, like
No, down south, Warwick, New York.
Okay. Carmel?
Yes. I'm off.
Where are you? You're up in Oneonta?
Yes.
Oh, wow. You're brave. Where are you from?
I'm from Long Island, Wantagh.
Okay. Yeah, my parents lived in Massapequa for a while.
Yeah, that's close by.
Yep. I remember, what was that? There was geez, I can't remember the name now. Anyway, never mind. Catania, where are you from?
Westchester, New York.
Where in Westchester?
Cross River.
Okay. Yeah, some friends of mine went to from White Plains that I from Oneonta. We played lacrosse together. Mount Kisco. There were some people I knew from Mount Kisco, New Rochelle.
Okay. I went to John Jay High School.
Okay. Yep.
The one in North Cross River.
Yep.
That's great.
John, anybody else want to volunteer where they're from or where they are right now?
I'm off campus. I'm also in Westchester, New York, in Ossining.
So we're off campus, like where are you guys located? Like near Main Street?
No, I'm at home in Ossining.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Carmel, where are you off campus? Like close to Main Street or?
Yeah, I'm on Linden.
Okay.
Linden Avenue.
I remember there was a pizza place on Main Street. We used to always go for pizza after, a night at the library. And,
was it Tino's or I know there's another one.
There's one on the corner, like they actually still have the slice with extra pizza on it, extra cheese on it. That was
the cold cheese pizzas.
That was us that created that, because I remember one time they gave us such hot pizza, we asked for extra cold cheese because just to cool it down. And now a friend of mine, actually my roommate, went up there with his kids and they have it on the menu.
Yeah, cold cheese pizza.
That was us. We created that. And that was that Tony's or Tino's? What was the name of the pizza place?
Tino's, right? Yeah, Tino's.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. We're going to wrap it up a little bit here. Just want to thank everyone for coming. Stephanie, I'll give you the last word here, and then we'll send everyone on their way.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming and speaking with us. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you. Yeah, good luck with everything. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. And work hard, play hard.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm hoping to at some point get to either New Jersey or New York City, but that will depend on a lot of things going on nationally and internationally.
My guess is by the end of next year. I think by winter this year, I think we should be. I think we should have a good healthy herd immunity and some semblance of normalcy.
All right. Well, we are fingers crossed, looking forward to
Yeah.
that. In the meantime, using technology, using data the way that we can.
Yes.
And so thanks for logging on, all the students. Thank you very much. I will have to say, Tom, that one of your classmates, I think Karen Brown, was on, who is currently our executive director of admissions.
Oh, really?
So
Wow.
she was listening in. If it's the Karen Brown that I thought, it all
Okay.
depends on the account that she uses to log in.
Okay. Yep.
All right. Well,
All
take
right.
care.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, everybody.